Yo guys, welcome to the Blue Podcast. This is the Great Show with me, Mackers and Tom. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks yourself.
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Getting used to these early starts on a Wednesday. Obviously, this is our weekly show to review Moon Knight, episode 5 this week. It's been a fun journey with me and Tom. I hope you guys are enjoying. But before we get into that, we are an ambassador for a new app called LinkMe. It's an app that makes juggling social media accounts easier than ever. So make sure to make an account with our link down below. Check out our merch. That would be greatly appreciated. I would say a darker episode in terms of what they say. Obviously, spoilers, everyone who's not watched it, go watch it and come back and watch this. It's a darker episode. It's a much dark. I don't think the Marvels really touched child abuse before, really.
No, I'd agree. It's yeah, you're spot on there. It's very reminiscent of sort of the Netflix Marvel shows in terms of
Yeah,
Daredevil and Punisher. Yeah, we have child abuse in there. We have like dead kids. Um, I mean, they really touch on everything in terms of hitting the darker notes, don't they?
yeah, they do. And so yeah, obviously they start off with Tararet taking their hearts. Um, Interesting that obviously she hasn't done it for a while, which obviously indicates that maybe it's must be to do with how you die or who you're associated with, depending on what afterlife you'll go to. Interesting that she said this afterlife as well, which may indicate that depending on who you believe in is where you'll go. So maybe there is Valhalla and there is what's the Greek afterlife? I don't know. Obviously that's teased in Thor
Yeah,
Love and
that's teased in Thor. Yeah, no, I think you're right. They're definitely leaving it very open to interpretation in terms of, excuse me, whichever religion you believe in or whatever you do believe in, that's the afterlife you'll then go to. I think it's great as well because Tarek mentioned the ancestral plane. Obviously, we've seen that in Black Panther, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's sort of the first nod to any other Marvel properties outside of Moon Knight.
Mm,
Because obviously Marvel's known for sort of bringing in everything into all its different shows and films. But I think episode 5, I think that's the first mention of anything outside of Moon Knight that's Marvel related. And obviously, yeah, Ancestral Plane's another one of the afterlives that we've seen in Black Panther. I assume it'll crop up in Black Panther 2 again. But yeah, as you mentioned, there's plenty of other ones out there that I guess, yeah, whoever you're associated with, I assume it's Mark's association with Konchu that's led him to
yeah.
this afterlife. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see whether they start mentioning any of the Marvel properties potentially in the finale.
Definitely, yeah. And it makes sense obviously to mention the ancestral plane because the Panther god, I can't remember the name, is an Egyptian god, and I think part of the what's the group called? I've forgotten.
You mentioned it last week, and I can't for the life of me remember.
The group of Egyptian gods that we've spoken all about already. Those ones. He's part of that, I'm pretty sure. So it does make sense that Moon Knight and Black Panther, which are quite, I guess, god related to an extent, uh, it does make sense for them to overlap. So yeah, obviously we're trying to figure out why their scales are unbalanced. It puts the two hearts on the scales, and obviously it indicates that when Arthur Harrow on his arm did the whole thing with Stephen, clearly he just did that the whole time, and actually there was no outcome. Obviously they did try and cover that up in the first episode, and we all thought maybe it was just like black or red, really, really red because of how much bad stuff he's done. But actually, there was actually no answer, which, as we find out, is not a good thing. And maybe why a lot of people are going to get sent to early graves.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, we saw that towards the end of this episode, didn't we? Sort of people flying down from the sky before Tara agreed to release Konchu. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think Konchu is released now, or because they don't mention it after that? They just say
I
that.
don't think he is yet.
Okay. So do you think that'll be sort of the plot of the final episode?
Yeah,
Mark.
it'll be the start, I think. The start of the final episode will be him being released, and maybe the other gods being released as well, or at some point those other gods will be released. I thought that Taweret was on, the shelves initially, but obviously she's not, because obviously she was worried about Osiris doing her in as well. Interestingly, she does disappear at the end of the episode, maybe to release Konchu, maybe because Osiris has already taken her. Initially, I thought that the reason the scales were unbalanced was because of Jake Lockley. I thought it was because he wasn't involved in the scenario, and then they'd find out he exists, and then obviously put the third heart on there, and then they're balanced, but obviously not. Was that your initial thought as well, Tom?
Well, no, to be honest, I was kind of drawn out of the Jake Lockley situation. Obviously, the last episode, they had the shaking sarcophagus that me and you both assumed that was Jake Lockley, but they didn't really allude to it at all in this episode. So that kind of disappeared from my mind. My assumption was essentially what the showrunners wanted me to think was, yeah, Stephen and Mark will go through, they'll talk about it, and then once they know everything about the past, sort of expose everything to the audience, just dump a massive load of exposition to the audience, then they'll be like complete and the scales will be balanced. Obviously, Stephen died. Well, we're left to think that he died at the end after he fell into the sand, and that's what balanced scales. Or as you were mentioning before the podcast, that's what they perhaps think. That's what they want you to think is what balanced the scales. Because you mentioned that you didn't think Stephen was perhaps necessarily dead.
I'd be surprised if he is, because of the sheer amount of love for him online. If he's actually dead, there would be a massive outcry. I see on social media, like, there's like polls of who's your favorite character on Moon Knight, and Stephen Grant wins every time. But I mean, I don't see that. I can see them doing it. I can see him being dead. I'd be surprised if he is, though, because obviously he's a big part of Moon Knight moving forwards. Obviously, I don't know if you know, this is being nominated for a standalone series, indicating that there will never be a season 2.
Yeah,
but
I didn't know that, but yeah.
But yeah, so normally, like, obviously, like, I think Loki is being put in the normal TV show bracket, whereas this is being put in the standalone TV show bracket. But obviously, I think Kevin Feige has said, excuse me, that he will appear in movies moving forwards. Obviously, I think we all knew that.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my follow-up to you. Do you think he'll perhaps get a solo movie? Because obviously with Falcon Winter Soldier, there's rumors of Captain America 4 being sort of Captain America 4, but it's Falcon and the Winter Soldier as a movie. But for this one, perhaps, do you reckon he could get a standalone, or do you think it'll be perhaps featuring in Blade? Maybe.
Yeah, I think it'll be a couple of cameo appearances first, testing the waters. Obviously, this TV show tests the waters a lot. I think it'd be because, like, it's not too over the top Moon. Like, okay, that's a lie. It's completely over the top Moon, but like, to do it in a movie, I think would be a bit tricky. I don't know, maybe just because of, at first, just because he's not as well known as, let's say, like a Thor or a Captain America. But now
they have a track record. I mean, they pulled off Guardians of the Galaxy, and nobody had ever really heard of Guardians of the Galaxy.
So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, now that show's done very well, and then he can have a few cameo appearances and then have a movie, I think that would probably be the way they go down.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see in the movie whether they sort of follow the same Egyptian mythology that they are in the TV show. Excuse me, because obviously the TV show has a lot more time to sort of explore the backgrounds and Stephen's dissociative identity disorder, all of the deep things that make it such a fantastic, that allow Oscar Isaac to deliver a fantastic performance. It'll be interesting to see whether they continue that sort of thing into the movies, or whether it'll just be Moon Knight, Oscar Isaac's an American assassin, he's Mark Spector, mercenary, not assassin, sorry, and Moon Knight's just a badass, essentially. Whether they'll just go that route and make his character a bit more two-dimensional, it'd be very interesting to see.
Yeah, no, for sure. There is a Moon Knight storyline involving all of the Avengers that I would love to see on the big screen. It would be insane. He basically takes on all of them, defeats them, then prays to the Phoenix Force, defeats Konchu, and then it's very. It'd be an insane story on on the big screen, but whether they do it is it'd have to be a standalone one because it was quite groundbreaking in terms of the whole MCU would be turned upside down.
I think it might be the sort of thing they're able to pull off in perhaps What If Season 2.
Yeah.
I've seen another one where he steals the powers of Iron Fist and Doctor Strange and then uses Mjolnir to defeat Thor. It's just that is definitely the sort of thing.
It looks so sick.
Yeah, it would be fantastic. But like you say, if they pulled it off on the big screen, then it would kind of break the MCU.
Yeah, it would just like, oh, okay, we're going down this route then. Because it's like, how do you recover from that? Next up, I want to touch on Dr. Harrow. Obviously, Dr. Harrow is in their head to an extent, I think, because it does seem like he's actually helping them balance the scales. Why do you think that they've gone with Harrow as that person?
Well, I just think that it's excuse me, tickly throat today. I just think it's sort of Mark Spector and Stephen Grant are sort of portraying this doctor figure as Harrow. It's not actually necessarily the Harrow that we've come to know in the show, and obviously it's their own imagination trying to help themselves. And I just think that Harrow is sort of that calm figure that we've seen throughout the rest of the show that is just it's just the one that's being sort of shown as the one that's helping them out. If you disagree with me on that,
I do agree. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. That's what he was in there. So obviously, we go through the memories. We find out that Mark's childhood wasn't too happy. Obviously, he didn't protect his brother like his mum expected him to. Mum went a bit cuckoo, you could say that, and then hated him for the rest of his life till she died and beat him. So it took a very dark twist quite quickly. I think we all knew where it was going, but it just kind of was like, oh, this is it's 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I was because my mum watched the first couple of episodes and said it was sort of a excuse me, not really her cup of tea. But I can just imagine if she'd watched this one today, she'd have been in floods of tears, and I imagine a lot of the audience watching would have been as well. Because it, as you say, very dark and very gritty and very real, and it was a lot to take in for 8:30 in the morning on a Wednesday. On Wednesday, as you mentioned, it was a very dark turn from the previous episode. If you think that the last episode finished with a high-pitched voiced hippopotamus, and then all of a sudden, 20 minutes into the next episode, we're seeing a child being beaten, and that's what created another personality, Stephen Grant, just to protect and shield Mark from his abusive mother. It's
really sad. So obviously, like, Stephen is created as kind of like a pincushion for Mark's mum to beat, but he doesn't realize he's being beaten. And then there's obviously that realization that Stephen thought his mum was alive. I think a lot of people thought that they would have realized that that's not actually Stephen's mum.
So do you think it was a separate person then? Do you think that was
I think it was just a fake line that Mark set up to pretend for him. And I think that Oscar Isaac played the whole thing incredibly well. Obviously, with Mark not wanting to go back to it, the whole thing. The CG is amazing as well. To have, like, you can't tell that that's the same actor. Really. Like, obviously it looks the same actor, but I'm saying, like, the way they interact, the way they touch, you couldn't tell.
And
the CG is amazing.
And we've seen in shows before. I think the one that springs to mind is Friends, when they have Phoebe and her twin sister, and they have to cut. It's very obvious they cut so that you only see one face at a time, and you can't really see them both together. But this is, it's like you say, whether it's CGI or whether it's just practical effects in terms of having an actor in the background.
Well, it's actually Oscar Isaac's brother, who would be playing the other person if he's chatting or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What, and they just CG Oscar Isaac's sort of face onto it.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Yeah, that they've done a fantastic job, as you say. It's it's very well
Yeah.
done.
They've done very well. They've done very well. So yeah, we obviously find out how Stephen was created. Obviously, we actually now know that the TV show or whatever the movie was real, and that Stephen Grant is a fictional character that was made up by Mark. But yeah, no. Then Oscar Isaac's acting when he's Stephen, realizing that his mother's dead, and his mother's actually an abusive person and not who he thought she was very touching. And I can imagine a few mums would have been crying at that point. Absolutely. If my mum watches it, I'm sure she'd be crying at that point as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very dark turn that Moon Knight's gone. It's a bit more happy, a bit more silly previously, and now it's kind of hit you in the face.
It does remind me of the WandaVision episode 5 in terms of it was actually very similar in terms of sort of going through the backstory that we haven't really seen before and sort of explaining how it got to this point, and the emotions really hit similarly because obviously in WandaVision we had her parents dying, her brother dying, Vision dying. We've got Mark's younger brother dying, the creation of Stephen, abusive mother dying. It was a lot to take in, and I think
Konchu pretty much using him as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Prevent. We didn't even touch on the suicide. Well, the near suicide.
Yeah, there's the suicide attempt as well.
This is Disney Plus, and they're doing the suicide attempts and abusive mothers. It is taken a very dark turn, but I think it adds a lot to the show, and Oscar Isaac portrayed it masterfully, I have to say, yeah.
He portrayed it very, very well. Yeah, should we move on to kind of the final set pieces they seem to have in every single Disney Plus show? There'll be a little fight with something or other, a bit more intense. Obviously, their scales aren't balanced yet as they get towards Osiris's gate. I don't know what that means, but I think it's the gate to the not the afterlife, but the real world. Tower disappears, which is interesting. Either she's gone to free Konchu or she has been turned to stone herself. Because obviously Konchu disappeared, like when he got turned to stone, so maybe she got turned to stone. And then there's a little fight with some sand people who seem surprisingly easy to kill for sand people. Mark's almost taken overboard. Stephen saves him. Mark gets almost taken overboard again. Stephen sacrifices himself for Mark, turns to sand as like a statue. Is he dead?
I think so, because I know what you're saying about him being a fan favorite, and yeah, he was the main character pretty much the first 2 episodes. But it seems like the entire episode they explained why Stephen's there and the creation of Stephen and everything like that. And if this were a standalone thing and there wasn't going to be any Moon Knight in anything after this point, it would make sense for Stephen to go now. Like, he's served his purpose to shield Mark from the rest of the world, and it's almost saying, okay, well, Mark's got to deal with it himself now. And we have all of the explanation of Stephen. So for Stephen's character to have any more use, he's got to have a plot going forward, and then they've got to make the dissociative identity disorder like a massive part of anything that Moon Knight's involved in the future. So I just have a feeling that Stephen might actually be dead, but then they sort of reference maybe Stephen in any future shows, and it's sort of like a nod to the fans. Like, oh yeah, for the first 5 episodes, Oscar Isaac was British, and that's just something that they'll reference occasionally in the future.
Yeah, no, and it would make sense. Obviously, Stephen sacrificing himself to save Mark, because obviously he was created to save Mark. So it's almost like quite poetic him doing that. It was very touching as well, because Oscar Isaac clearly looked distressed as hell as Mark when he saw Stephen kind of fall off. And again, I think we can get on about how good Oscar Isaac's been in this show, but like very, very much they've bonded over this whole experience, which is why I think the scales became balanced not because Stephen died, but because they bonded and they broke down barriers. And obviously, it's not balanced. I think that maybe the show wants you to think that now Stephen's gone, they're balanced. But I think it's because of their companionship that they've built over time, almost becoming brothers because they kind of are. But yeah, I don't think I have much else to touch on. How about you?
Well, I was just going to see if we could touch on sort of what the next episode might entail, because obviously the final episode of these Marvel shows is always the most exciting. I mean, we had White Vision last time in WandaVision. We had Captain America.
A big purple laser.
There will be a big sky beam, and then there'll just be a load of CGI fights happening all over everywhere between sand people and goon. Yeah. But no, seriously, it will be like WandaVision. We had, as I say, White Vision, and we had Scarlet Witch reveal. Falcon and Soldier, we had Falcon becoming Captain America, which was awesome. Loki was, what was a Loki finale? That was
the fight with Kang.
Oh, Kang. Yeah, Kang. How could we forget? Yeah, Kang. And Hawkeye, we had Kingpin. So I'm kind of expecting at least Dane Whitman to turn up, and potentially Mahershala Ali as Blade.
No, mate.
They've got to throw.
I don't think there will be. I think there might be a post-credit scene. There could be a post-credit
scene. At least a post-credit scene, surely.
But I don't know if they'll show up in the main thing. It would be mad if they do. I'd be interested if the Panther God shows up at some point. That could be a good nod. I think there will be a giant laser from a pyramid or something.
It will just be like a moon shining up from the top of the pyramid that opens up and Konchu's revealed. Yeah.
There'll be a bit where we all think that they're going to lose. He turns into Moon Knight and beats the crap out of everybody. Arthur Harrow steps too hard on his shoes and his feet start bleeding. I don't know. I think it's very hard to call. Obviously, I think Amrit, what's her name? The god that's being resurrected.
Armit, yeah.
Armit. She'll be resurrected at some point, obviously. She'll cause some damage. Well, she seems to already be causing some damage with obviously all the unbalanced souls arriving. Clearly, she's not a good person, because if the soul's unbalanced, it means it's not good or bad. It just has so. But the judging system seems to be a bit wrong in terms of the Egyptian way, but it is what it is. What do you think, apart from big laser in the sky?
It's like you said, it's hard to predict. I think obviously Konchu will be freed at the start. Mark will become Moon Knight, accept that he's going to be Moon Knight for the foreseeable future, defeat Harrow and Armit, and all be well and good. Although you never know with this show, it has taken a bit of a dark turn recently, so there could not be a happy ending in sight, to be fair. But yeah, I think the big thing for me is just anything leading into the future Marvel stuff. Even if it's post-credit scene and it's just a little tease of Blade and Dane Whitman, I would be very happy with that. I'd be very happy with that. Because to be fair, I don't know how they'd necessarily fit in. Like, there's a lot of stuff to wrap up in the finale. Dealing with Layla's character as well, and it would be difficult to fit in an entire sequence or set piece where Blade comes in and helps like stop Harrow. Essentially, it'd be very difficult for them to fit that in. So yeah, I think you're right. An end credit scene would be good.
Fair enough. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed episode 5 of Moon Knight Review with me and Tom. If you did, please do leave a like and subscribe if you're new around here. We are like fingertip away from the 900 subscriber mark, which would be amazing to hit very, very soon. I hope you guys have been enjoying these shows. Obviously, we'll have episode 6 coming to you next Wednesday, nice and early as always. And yeah, I've been enjoying this. Obviously, we got Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness to come very, very soon. Actually, 8 days time. 8 days time. And I'm sure me and Tom will get the review out to you ASAP. Thank you very much, guys. And yeah, we'll see you in a bit.